All right, so here's another one. Some kind of, okay, Coolpad. I think that's a smartphone. Should be relatively cheap one. Okay, it says boot loop. All right, let's see if that's the case. Just a second. All right, so here's our power plug. That should use, yep, that's the usual micro USB. Okay, so we're booting up, so that's good. So we have some power. And yes, we're indeed in the boot loop. As you can see, I'm not pressing anything. And we're getting logo on and it's okay. So let's do something very quickly and see if we can get into the recovery mode because yeah, it's powered by Android. So let's see if that works out. Okay, so we get somewhere. It says download and install the package. So we are able, well, we should be able to at least try to update the firmware by the looks of that. So it seems like this mode is working. I have no idea if the firmware is available, what it is. I mean, it's, well, given it's Android, probably. So we should be able to flash it. I've never worked with this device before, so we'll see how it goes. But so far, that's what it is. We can't proceed any further. So boot loop indeed. The Coolpad boot loop. GL mode present. All right. Okay. All right. So there's that. All right, and here we are. So this phone is completely operational now. Well, that did take a while, and that's quite an interesting story here. So it was not an easy thing to take care of. So how did I start? Well, if you remember that the problem with this phone was the boot loop. So nothing was working, just power on, logo, and well, logo was looping. So I jumped the gun there, and assuming that it's an issue with the firmware, I decided to, hey, I'll just need to, you know, flash new firmware. And of course I couldn't find the proper firmware, so the best I could find somewhere in the internet, pretty dodgy sites out there, a whole bunch of snapshots of the partitions for the internal flash, and there are like 27 partitions actually on this Android. So what I did do is what I shouldn't have done, and I jumped the gun and I went in and I literally flashed all 27 partitions out there, hoping that it will resuscitate the phone. Well, that was a mistake. Almost never do what I did here. Most of the, well, at least many of the partitions are actually fairly specific to the phone. And yeah, you don't want to overwrite them with something that hasn't been dumped from the same phone. So that's usually a recipe to, you know, make things worse, or at least not better. So long story short, again, that didn't work. As in, I did flash it, that didn't help with the boot loop. Of course, that's when I realized, well, after that, that the in all likelihood boot loop was caused by the fact that there was no battery. Yeah, that the phone had no battery. The reason that you could see it's kind of being powered up and whatnot is because that's one of the devices that if you just plug it in with the USB cable here, it will power up. But I'm pretty sure that that was the issue with the boot loop. So it would power up, but it wouldn't really go anywhere from there. So again, long story short, and I can show you, I actually get a battery here. So there was, after I opened this, there was nothing here. All right. And now there is, and as you can see, it's not exactly new battery, but it's new to me and it's working, so that's fine. So again, another eBay purchase, but so yeah, it's no longer a $1 device, but I think I spent maybe like certainly below $5 for the battery. So 2, 3 or something like that. And I'm pretty sure that's including shipping. Yeah, so that's still pretty decent. So again, long story short, after I plugged in the battery and I already flashed the partitions on the internal flash, the phone booted up. Now, that remains to be seen. Well, we won't know now, but it's quite possible that it would have actually worked if I just added the battery. Maybe there were no issues with the firmware, but well, we'll never know now. Unfortunately, as I said, if you do this brutal reflash as the way I did, even if I added the battery, I managed to boot it up, but a lot of things didn't work, let's put it like that. So while the phone booted, like there was no network, there was no Wi-Fi, I'm pretty sure, there was no GPS, there was a lot of things that were just not working straight up. And one of the most important things is the IMEI, that's the ID number for what every phone basically has built in. I'm pretty sure during the reflash that went down to 0. So basically, like no IMEI was reset, and that's bad. That's usually a bad thing. Well, it's always a bad thing, but yeah, often it's not something you can recover from. But in this particular case, what I managed to do is use QPST tool, which actually can override the IMEI, and fortunately I actually did record that, well, what was the original IMEI on this phone. I think it was, I don't remember where it was. I think it was actually just written up somewhere, so I don't think I actually recorded it. I think it was somewhere like on the inside or on the body. Anyway, so I managed to actually reflash the IMEI, rebooted the phone, and it almost worked at that point in time. So it actually connected to the network, or so it looked like. Wi-Fi was connected, I'm pretty sure, things like that. However, it wasn't exactly working. So even though it did show connection to the mobile network, I couldn't do any calls or anything like that. It would just, fail with some errors here. That was unfortunate because it was really close. It seems like it was almost working. So what I needed to find was what is called QCN, which is Qualcomm Calibration Network, I think that's acronym stands for. That's basically a low level, the calibration data for the phone, and that's personal in a way to every phone. So you need to have it. Yeah, usually it's not something you can just, it's not part of the firmware that you can reflash. But because again, I didn't save it from the original setup, which I should have, but I didn't. I have to look for the QCN, and again, after a while, I found somebody on the internet who actually shared dumped QCN from the working phone of the same model. And after that, I managed to reflash QCN with the, again, QPST tool. And that actually finished the deal. So now everything seems to be working. Mobile network is working, Wi-Fi is working, GPS is working, everything else is still working. As you can, again, I'm not going to be walking through the whole thing. But yeah, basically it's everything is working. Oh yeah, there was one other thing along the way. After I managed to boot up the phone, but before the rest of the things, yeah, the phone was actually carrier locked. I think it was T-Mobile. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was T-Mobile. So yeah, that's something I had to unlock as well. Again, that's for this phone. That wasn't a big issue. But yeah, so now it's actually it's working. It's able to work on any network, well, GSM network at least. So it's not carrier locked anymore, and yeah, and that's that. Yeah, and I think I don't know if I did mention it in the previous video, but yeah, the phone model here is you can probably see it here. That's Coolpad, known as Rogue. And the model is 3320A, I believe. Let's see. Yep. Model number, yeah, Coolpad 3320A. So that's that. That was quite an elaborate story. Nothing of that was really filmed. I mean, there was really not much to film there. And it did take quite a while over periods of time because I tried different things and then it didn't work out. And then I was just leave it out and come back sometime later. But now finally it's all done, so that's another device. Wasn't exactly $1 device as per averages because I had to add at the very least a battery for a couple more bucks and wherever you want to count the unlock or not. But yeah, so now it's all working. The phone is actually in great shape, good working condition. Again, considering it's relatively old. And that's another device that we can put the check marks over. And with that, I'll see you in the next episodes. See ya.